Steelers' third-string backup quarterback, Skylar Thompson, in Dublin, was jumped and robbed.
Skylar Thompson's shocking attack in Dublin has left fans demanding answers.
Like, where was NFL security?
Now NFL owners are exploding with outrage. Tensions are boiling over. The league is scrambling for answers and calls for justice grow louder. But what's about to surface next could shake the entire NFL to its core. Let's get into it. The outrage and the NFL's response. News of Thompson's assault spread rapidly across social media platforms, igniting a firestorm of criticism directed at the NFL and sparking broader conversations about player safety during international games. The reaction was swift, passionate, and overwhelmingly critical of the league's expansion strategy, with commentators and fans alike questioning whether the NFL had adequately prepared for the realities of taking games overseas.
Like, where was NFL security? Like, seriously. If you're the National Football League and there were issues of this in previous international games, i.e. Brazil last year, where you pretty much told the players not to leave their hotel rooms, you need a greater security presence.
The sentiment expressed by that commentator echoed across platforms like X, formerly Twitter, and Reddit, where fans, analysts, media personalities, and concerned citizens weighed in on the implications of what had happened to Thompson. The discussion quickly expanded beyond this single incident to encompass broader questions about the NFL's priorities, its duty of care to players, and whether international expansion was worth the risks being imposed on athletes.
You're the National Football League. You make billions and billions of dollars. And you've outwardly said publicly that in the future, you'd like to maybe some point have a Super Bowl played overseas. Well, this isn't a good look for that.
Many users expressed sympathy for the quarterback, describing him as a humble kid from small-town USA who was likely minding his own business, trying to experience a new culture during what should have been a safe and enjoyable international trip. One particularly pointed observation came from a user who wrote, "Keep an American sport in America. There's no better place on earth than the United States," capturing the frustration many felt about the NFL's international ambitions. Another called the incident scary and questioned how Thompson ended up in that situation, implicitly criticizing whatever security arrangements, or lack thereof, had allowed a player to be so vulnerable. The criticism wasn't just coming from American fans concerned about their own players. A Dublin politician weighed in, calling the attack an example of ongoing dangers in the city center, acknowledging that this wasn't simply an isolated incident but part of a troubling pattern that had been building for months or even years. This political acknowledgement was significant. It validated the concerns of locals who had been warning about deteriorating safety conditions, and it implicitly confirmed that the NFL should have been aware of these risks when planning their Dublin game. Local Irish residents on social media expressed a complex mixture of embarrassment, frustration, and concern about how such attacks might damage their city's reputation. Many were quick to point out that Dublin's crime problems don't define Ireland as a whole, but they also couldn't deny the reality of what was happening in certain areas of the city center, particularly at night. One local commentator lamented, "Sadly, my hometown is becoming ever more dangerous. It is routine to see no visible Gardaí in busy city center locations," while another described the scene, "Dublin city center, so safe." 6. American football star Skylar Thompson assaulted and robbed in Temple Bar on Friday night. The NFL Players Association, which represents the interests and safety of players across the league, issued a carefully worded statement that attempted to balance concern with measured professionalism. "We are aware of the incident involving Skylar Thompson in Ireland and are relieved to know he is okay," the NFLPA stated before adding, "The NFLPA is actively gathering more information and working to understand the full circumstances surrounding what took place. As always, our priority is the health and safety of our player members, especially as we continue to work on the player protections and well-being while playing international games, and we will continue to support Skylar in any way he needs." That statement, while diplomatic in tone, contained an implicit but unmistakable criticism of the NFL's international expansion strategy. By specifically mentioning player protections and well-being while playing international games, the NFLPA was signaling that they view overseas contests as presenting unique and inadequately addressed safety concerns. This wasn't just generic language about player welfare, it was a pointed reference to ongoing tensions between the union and league management over the pace and scope of global expansion. The NFLPA has been increasingly vocal about concerns regarding overseas games, with Executive Director Lloyd Howell Jr. criticizing the league's push for more international contests, stating the NFL can't go international and then come back and add an 18th game, without addressing the risk involved. This comment links two separate but related issues: the physical toll of additional games and the logistical and safety challenges of international travel. Howell has noted that when he talks to players, no one wants to play an 18th game, no one, citing health concerns as a key factor. The Thompson incident also drew comparisons to previous international game controversies, revealing a pattern of inadequate planning and player protection. During the 2024 game in Brazil between the Philadelphia Eagles and Green Bay Packers, players reported slippery field conditions that raised serious injury concerns. The playing surface, which had to accommodate soccer matches and other events, wasn't properly maintained or configured for American football, creating hazardous conditions that players were nonetheless expected to navigate. That Brazil game had already been controversial for other reasons. The NFL had advised players not to leave their hotel rooms due to safety concerns, essentially putting the athletes under a form of voluntary house arrest during their stay in Sao Paulo. Players were warned about the risks of crime, kidnapping, and violence in certain areas of the city, leading to a situation where they were expected to play a game for public entertainment while being confined to secure locations during all other times. The contrast between those precautions in Brazil and the apparent lack of similar protections in Dublin raised troubling questions that demanded answers. If the NFL was aware enough of potential dangers in some international locations to restrict player movements, why weren't similar safeguards implemented for the Dublin game? Had the league conducted adequate risk assessments? Were players briefed on local safety concerns? Were security personnel provided for team members venturing into the city? Beyond the immediate safety concerns, the Thompson assault also illuminated deeper structural issues with how the NFL approaches international expansion. Critics have argued that these games create huge competitive disadvantages for participating teams, with long flights, jet lag, and disrupted routines increasing fatigue and injury susceptibility. The physical demands of international travel, crossing multiple time zones, adjusting to different climates and altitudes, dealing with unfamiliar food and accommodations, all take a toll on athlete performance and recovery. The Minnesota Vikings, for instance, faced back-to-back international games in 2025, Dublin and London, creating extended time abroad and early buys that disrupted their entire season rhythm. Teams also lose home field advantage with home games turned neutral, affecting playoff chances. For example, the Los Angeles Chargers lost a key home opener to Brazil in 2025, seen as unfair to build local support and create the kind of home field atmosphere that can provide genuine competitive advantage. Meanwhile, Commissioner Roger Goodell and the NFL front office have remained conspicuously silent on the specifics of the Thompson incident, offering only vague assurances through intermediaries. The league declined to comment beyond acknowledging they were working with security personnel to gather information. The silence is particularly notable given Goodell's repeated public statements about expanding the NFL's global footprint. The commissioner has spoken enthusiastically and repeatedly about the potential for growth in markets around the world, painting a vision of American football as a truly global sport that rivals soccer in international reach. But he has been far less vocal about the challenges, risks, and genuine costs such expansion entails. When pressed about player safety concerns related to international games, Goodell's responses have typically focused on assurances that the league takes these matters seriously, without providing specific details about enhanced security measures, protocols, or concrete steps being taken to protect players. For Thompson himself, the immediate aftermath involved returning to his role as a supportive teammate despite the trauma he had experienced, putting on a brave face for the organization and his fellow players. He attended the Vikings-Steelers game on Sunday, September 28th, watching from the sidelines as Pittsburgh secured a 24-21 victory in what was supposed to be a celebration of the NFL's arrival in Ireland. The organizational response, or more accurately, the lack thereof, spoke volumes about how the NFL views these incidents and what it considers important. Rather than addressing the traumatic incident that happened that night, publicly acknowledging the failure to protect a player and outlining specific, concrete steps to prevent future occurrences, the league chose to minimize, deflect, and move on as quickly as possible. The night everything changed in Temple Bar. When the Pittsburgh Steelers arrived in Dublin, Ireland on Friday morning, September 27, 2025, the team was buzzing with excitement about making NFL history. They were about to participate in the league's first ever regular season game on Irish. soil, a milestone moment that would see them face off against the Minnesota Vikings at the iconic Croke Park. The team had settled into their accommodations at Carton House, an upscale resort located roughly 45 minutes from Dublin's bustling city center, and some members of the traveling party decided to venture into town to experience the famous Irish hospitality. Among those who made the trip into Dublin was Skylar Thompson, the Steelers' backup quarterback. At 28 years old, Thompson was in his fourth NFL season and first with Pittsburgh, having signed with the team in January 2025 after spending 3 years with the Miami Dolphins. What should have been an exciting international adventure would instead become a harrowing experience that would shine a spotlight on player safety concerns during the NFL's aggressive global expansion. Thompson wasn't even supposed to play in Sunday's game. He had been placed on injured reserve on September 10th, 2025, with a hamstring injury, making him ineligible to suit up against the Vikings. But as a member of the traveling party, he was there to support his teammates and experience this historic moment for the franchise. Standing at 6'2" and weighing 219 pounds, Thompson was a professional athlete in peak physical condition, someone who had spent his entire adult life training his body to withstand the brutal demands of football. Yet what happened next would demonstrate that even elite athleticism offers little protection against the dangers of urban crime in unfamiliar territory.
Per Tom Pelissero, Friday night, Steelers' third-string backup quarterback Skylar Thompson in Dublin was jumped and robbed. He did suffer minor injuries as part of the altercation, but is okay and with the team.
The incident occurred in Dublin's Temple Bar area, one of the city's most popular tourist destinations, known for its vibrant nightlife, traditional pubs, and cultural attractions. This neighborhood, situated in the heart of Dublin's city center, draws visitors from around the world with its cobblestone streets and iconic red-bricked facades. But beneath the tourist-friendly veneer, Temple Bar has become increasingly known for something far more sinister in recent years. Thompson was jumped and robbed by multiple assailants in what authorities described as an opportunistic attack. The details that emerged paint a disturbing picture of coordinated violence. The quarterback was overpowered by a group of attackers who left him bloodied and shaken, a professional athlete reduced to just another crime statistic in a city grappling with rising street violence. His cell phone was among the items stolen, and he sustained minor injuries, including possible concussion-like symptoms. Thompson was briefly hospitalized for treatment, but was released and returned to the team. The physical injuries, while described as minor, were perhaps the least concerning aspect of what transpired that night. The Pittsburgh Steelers organization moved quickly to address the situation, though their public response was notably measured and carefully controlled. Team spokesperson and director of communications Burt Lawton released a statement that read,
"We are aware of a situation involving Skylar Thompson on Friday night in Dublin. We will have no further comment at this time as we are working with NFL security to gather more information regarding the incident."
But perhaps most troubling was what didn't happen in the immediate aftermath. Ireland's Justice Minister Jim O'Callaghan stated that there have been no formal reports to local Gardaí, police, raising serious questions about whether proper law enforcement protocols were followed. Why wouldn't a violent assault on an NFL player warrant an official police report? Was this a decision made by Thompson himself, perhaps discouraged from pursuing local law enforcement action? Was it the team's legal counsel advising against formal reporting to avoid complications or delays that might interfere with the game schedule? Or does it reflect a broader institutional approach within the NFL to handle such matters internally, keeping them away from local authorities and out of official records that might become public? No arrests have been made, and no specific descriptions of the perpetrators have been publicly released, leaving the assailants free on Dublin streets, potentially free to target other victims. This lack of law enforcement engagement means there's no official investigation, no effort to use surveillance footage from the heavily monitored Temple Bar area to identify suspects, no warning to other tourists or visitors about the specific threat. The attackers face no consequences, emboldened perhaps to strike again. The timing of this attack couldn't have been worse for the NFL's international ambitions. The league has been aggressively expanding its global footprint, with Commissioner Roger Goodell openly discussing plans to host up to 16 international international games per season, potentially including locations in Asia. These games are viewed as crucial to growing the NFL's worldwide fan base, and more importantly, its revenue streams. But the Thompson incident exposed a fundamental flaw in this expansion strategy. The league may be prioritizing profits over the safety and well-being of the very athletes who make these games possible. The attack on Thompson wasn't happening in a vacuum. Dublin has been grappling with increasing concerns about street crime, particularly in tourist-heavy areas like Temple Bar. Just days before Thompson's assault, another high-profile incident had made headlines when an English tourist was left critically injured after a savage attack in the same Temple Bar area. That victim, a man in his 40s visiting Dublin with a family member, was rushed to Beaumont Hospital, where he underwent emergency surgery for serious head injuries.
In what is shaping up to be a bumper week for all the wrong reasons for Dublin, crime, the Gardaí, and now tourism, yet another attack on the streets of Dublin. This time an English tourist has been hospitalised with serious head injuries after an assault in the popular Temple Bar area. This happened last night.
These weren't isolated incidents. In August 2023, a British tourist was attacked by a group of youths in an unprovoked attack, and in December of that year, another male was left with serious head injuries following another unprovoked assault. The pattern was clear and well documented. Dublin city centre had become increasingly dangerous, particularly for visitors who might be unfamiliar with the area's trouble spots, or who could be easily identified as tourists with valuable belongings. Local residents and observers had been sounding the alarm for months about the deteriorating safety situation. Many pointed to a lack of visible police presence in busy areas like Temple Bar, with one local commentator noting,
"The reason is because the prices there are absolutely extortionate, and anyone with a right thinking brain wouldn't go anywhere near that place at the best of times to have a night out. But tourists don't know that, so it attracts tourists in particular, and it also attracts some of the lesser elements also, by the looks of things."
For Skylar Thompson, this was particularly cruel timing in a life already marked by extraordinary challenges. The young quarterback had already faced more adversity than most people experience in a lifetime. At just 5 years old, Thompson lost his mother Teresa to stage 4 breast cancer and his grandfather John to pancreatic cancer around the same time.
My mom got diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, and then my grandfather, my dad's dad, got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and both were given a short time to live. And at a time, where I was very young, and that didn't make sense to me what that was. I had no idea what cancer meant, So my dad was just basically explaining to me that they both were very sick and that our lives were going to change a little bit.
But with everything that has happened, fans and the general public don't seem to be hearing what they need to hear from the NFL. Not even an admission of shortcoming, despite their track record of failures. The question of accountability. The assault on Skylar Thompson in Dublin wasn't an anomaly in the world of professional sports. It was the latest and most high-profile entry in a disturbing pattern of attacks on athletes, both at home and abroad. Understanding this broader context is crucial to grasping the full scope of the problem facing the NFL and other professional leagues as they navigate the intersection of celebrity, wealth, public schedules, and criminal opportunity. Just months before Thompson's incident, former NFL star Richard Sherman became another victim when thieves burst through a window of his Seattle, Washington home with his family inside. Sherman's wife Ashley posted to her Instagram story, "The kids and I are physically okay, very shaken up. Waking up to intruders outside your bedroom with a gun is something no one should have to experience." Sherman himself praised his wife for how she handled the terrifying situation, writing on X, "Scary situation that my wife handled masterfully and kept my kids safe." The psychological trauma of such an experience, knowing that armed intruders were mere feet from where your children slept, that the sanctity and safety of your home had been violated, can have lasting effects on an entire family. But the Sherman case was just one of many high-profile incidents. In late 2024, a coordinated series of burglaries targeted some of the NFL's biggest stars, exposing how vulnerable even the most famous and wealthy athletes can be despite security systems, gated communities, and all the protections money can supposedly buy. In October 2024, burglars broke into the homes of Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes in Missouri and tight end Travis Kelce in Kansas as the team took the field for Monday Night Football. Mahomes, who had given a tour of his custom home in the Netflix documentary Quarterback, building it from the ground up after signing a record-breaking $450 million contract, found himself victimized despite all his security measures. Police say burglars stole $20,000 in cash from Travis Kelce's home and damaged the back door. His girlfriend at the time, Taylor Swift, was at the game, and afterwards she and Kelce reportedly did not return to his house, staying elsewhere until they felt safe returning. This detail reveals how such incidents ripple outward, affecting not just the primary victim, but everyone in their orbit, disrupting normal life and creating an atmosphere of fear and vulnerability. Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow's home was also targeted, with approximately $300,000 worth of items taken, including designer luggage, glasses, watches, and jewelry. NBA player Bobby Portis's home was burglarized in November 2024 while the Milwaukee Bucks forward was on the court against the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I had a home invasion and they took most of my prized possessions.
What connected many of these cases was their calculated, methodical nature. These weren't crimes of opportunity or random break-ins. They were carefully planned operations by sophisticated criminal enterprises.
One of the big vulnerabilities for professional athletes that everyone knows is that their schedules are published. When they're playing at home, when they're playing away, it makes them attractive targets.
These burglars had a clear and consistent modus operandi. They targeted high-profile professional athletes while they were known to be away from home based on publicly available schedules. 7 Chilean nationals were charged in February 2025 for their roles in at least 6 such incidents.
They come into the country with some sort of fake IDs. They use that alias to rent cars, to rent hotels or short-term housing. They pay cash for everything. It's very difficult and it creates problems for law enforcement in tracking them.
Beyond these organized crime rings, there have been other disturbing incidents of street-level attacks on NFL players that demonstrate how vulnerable athletes can be outside the controlled environment of team facilities and games. An unnamed New York Jets player was robbed at gunpoint on February 15, 2025 in Morristown, New Jersey. The player and a companion were followed over 30 miles from Manhattan after a night out, then confronted by 3 armed men from a dark SUV who stole money and valuables. While no injuries occurred, the incident was described as targeted and isolated. The fact that these criminals followed their victim for over 30 miles suggests premeditation and coordination. They likely identified the player at a Manhattan location, perhaps a nightclub or restaurant, then tracked him as he traveled back to New Jersey, waiting for the right moment to strike. This level of patience and planning indicates that targeting athletes has become a deliberate criminal strategy, not just random opportunism. Perhaps the most dramatic pre-Thompson incident involved San Francisco 49 REIR's wide receiver Ricky Pearsall, who was shot in the chest during an attempted armed robbery on September 1st, 2024, in San Francisco's Union Square area. While shopping for luxury items, he was approached by a 17-year-old suspect who attempted to rob him at gunpoint. During a struggle over the gun, Pearsall was shot, and the suspect was also wounded. Pearsall was hospitalized but released the next day after the bullet passed through without hitting vital organs. Pearsall's case is particularly sobering because it demonstrates how quickly these situations can turn deadly. A shopping trip in broad daylight in a major American city nearly cost a young man his life. The fact that he survived was due to luck, bullet's trajectory, rather than any protective measures or security presence. It serves as a stark reminder that the vulnerability of professional athletes isn't limited to international games in unfamiliar cities. It exists wherever criminals see opportunity. The pattern is clear and deeply troubling. Professional athletes, because of their public profiles, predictable schedules, and perceived wealth, have become prime targets for criminals of all types. And while the NFL has issued security alerts to teams and provided some guidance, the fundamental question remains, is the league doing enough to protect its players, especially when it asks them to travel to unfamiliar international destinations where local law enforcement capabilities and priorities may differ significantly from American standards? The NFL's official stance on player health and safety emphasizes transparency, data access, and ongoing improvements. The league points to initiatives like annual helmet lab testing, introducing new models that perform better in reducing head impact severity, and concussion protocols established in 2011 and reviewed annually. They highlight their Field Surface Safety and Performance Committee, established in 2016, which researches and advises on safer playing surfaces. But these measures, while important and representing genuine progress in some areas, focus primarily on on-field safety, the physical toll of the game itself, the impacts, the collisions, the cumulative damage that occurs during practices and games. What they don't adequately address is the growing concern about off-field security, particularly in international settings where local law enforcement may have different capabilities and priorities, where language barriers exist, where cultural differences affect safety expectations, and where American athletes may be particularly visible and vulnerable as obvious outsiders with valuable possessions. The NFLPA has been more vocal and aggressive about these concerns, with their recent team report cards based on anonymous player surveys grading teams across 11 categories, many tied to safety. These assessments cover treatment of families, nutrition, locker rooms, training staff, head coaches, weight rooms, strength coaches, travel, team owners, and overall facilities. The goal is to improve player conditions, highlight positive teams, and identify areas for improvement, creating accountability through public transparency. The Dublin incident has sparked necessary conversations about what player safety actually means in an era of global expansion. It's not enough to ensure the playing surface meets standards or that medical personnel are on hand at games. True player safety means considering the entire player experience, from the moment they board a plane for an international trip until they return safely home. If you enjoyed this video, click on the videos on your screen for more.